Namaskar and welcome to this program where we'll put into perspective the Indo-Australia nuclear agreement that was signed yesterday in the presence of the Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Tony Abbott.
In a major boost to its energy aspirations, India on Friday inked a significant civil nuclear agreement with Australia, which allows Canberra to supply uranium to energy-starved country. The two countries discussed ways to enhance cooperation in key areas of security and trade. The nuclear pact was signed after a meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Australian counterpart Tony Abbott, during which the two leaders discussed crucial bilateral, regional and international issues. India and Australia launched talks on uranium sales in 2012 after Canberra lifted a long-time ban on exporting the valuable yellow cake to Delhi to meet its ambitious nuclear energy program. Australia has about a third of world's recoverable uranium resources and exports nearly 7,000 tons of it a year. Aimed at promoting cooperation in the field of peaceful uses of nuclear energy, the agreement recognizes India's commitment in this regard. The pact is significant given the fact that Indian nuclear plants generate 4,680 megawatts of electricity, out of which 2,840 megawatt was from indigenous uranium, while 1,840 megawatt was from imported fuel. The civil nuclear deal is among the 4 pacts signed. A cooperation in technical vocational education and training, as also in water resources management and sports.
आज संपन्न हुआ सिविल न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी कोऑपरेशन एग्रीमेंट का एक ऐतिहासिक कदम है। यह हमारे आपसी विश्वास और भरोसे का बहुत बड़ा प्रमाण है। हमारे सहयोग में एक नए अध्याय का शुभारंभ करेगा।
We've signed a nuclear cooperation agreement because Australia trusts India to do the right thing in this area, as it has done the right thing in every area since independence almost 70 years ago.
During the meeting, the two leaders also discussed ways to deepen the strategic and economic partnership, noting that India and Australia are bound by strong convergent trade and strategic interests. The visiting dignitary said that Australia needs to invest more time and efforts into the trade and investment relation with India. According to the joint statement issued after the meeting, the two prime ministers noted that both Australians and Indians have been victims of terrorism and commended the work of Joint Working Group on Counter-Terrorism, including discussions on cyber security and the growing collaboration against the threat by terrorist groups. They reaffirmed the desire for a peaceful, prosperous and stable Asia-Pacific region underpinned by cooperative mechanisms and emphasized their interest in building closer cooperation in maritime domain.
हिंद महासागर क्षेत्र में और एशिया पैसिफिक में शांति और विकास को आगे बढ़ाना है तो भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया को आपसी सहयोग को प्राथमिकता देनी होगी और अन्य देशों को इस काम में जोड़ने में नैतिक जिम्मेदारी लेनी होगी.
The two leaders also discussed the importance of consolidating the G20 as the premier forum for international economic cooperation. Holding Modi's hand tightly, Abbott said that he will not only be pleased but touched by the warmth of Modi's welcome.
Can I say to Prime Minister Modi that I have been not just pleased but touched by the warmth of the welcome, not just the official warmth but by the personal warmth as well. I am tremendously grateful I am tremendously grateful for this reception, and long will it last.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that India and Australia must not only work together with a sense of priority to promote peace and prosperity in Asia, Pacific and Indian Ocean region, but also take on the responsibility of bringing together all the countries in this endeavor.
With the Australian Prime Minister flagging that India has respected all tenets of international law and therefore Australia can trust India with its uranium, it will go in boosting India's credential as a non-proliferating country and also be a step towards being a part of the international nuclear regimes. With Ravi Dhiman and cameraman Sushil Sharma, Amritpal Singh, DD News, New Delhi.
Well, joining us in the studio to put this all into perspective, we have with us Mr. Shashank, the former Foreign Secretary, Professor R. Rajaraman, who was Emeritus Professor of Theoretical Physics and also an expert on nuclear affairs, and Dr. Shubhra Kamal Datta is a Foreign Policy and Strategic Affairs expert. We'll start with you, Mr. Shashank. Why is this so important for India?
Well, India has been short of nuclear fuel from its own resources, and it has been trying to buttress because nuclear energy is seen as a clean energy,
Right.
and especially when you are having a power plant set up away from coal heads or from other distribution centers for power resources, the nuclear power is the cheapest in that case.
Okay.
We have been trying for a long time, and the civil nuclear energy program with the Americans was the first landmark,
Absolutely.
and the Americans helped India also get the deal through the nuclear suppliers group. Australia has a special problem because Australia has taken a view that unless a country signs the NPT regime,
Right.
it would not be in a position to supply the nuclear fuel. Australia is one of the largest suppliers of uranium worldwide, and therefore it is useful to have this kind of an agreement with
Okay.
Australia.
Absolutely.
And this will also open the doors for other cooperation in the various defense-related or strategic areas with Australia.
Right.
We have many other partnerships with Australia, you know, in the Asia-Pacific region.
Right.
We are members of the Indian Ocean Rim Association. We are members of the East Asia Summit.
Okay.
We are also a dialogue partner of the Pacific Island Forum, where
Right.
Australia is a member. So therefore, we are building up these ties very strongly. At one time, we were even thinking in terms of setting up a concert of democracy,
Okay.
including Australia, India, Japan, and the United States.
Sure.
That has not moved very well so far. But anyway, I think the hope is that with this uranium deal,
Okay.
we should open more doors so that our nuclear power stations,
Right.
which sometimes are running below their capacity, they would be supplied the uranium fuel,
Okay.
and we will have
So the
sufficient
most
reserves.
important thing, Professor Rajaraman, is supply of uranium, and Australia is the largest, has the largest reserves of uranium, and obviously will be the largest supplier of
One
uranium.
of the
And
largest. It's the third largest.
it's the largest in the world in terms of its content. It has 31% of the world's resources. 31% of the world's resources of uranium. But okay, I mean, looking ahead, we now what we import only about we have already imported about 2,000 tons of uranium for our fledgling project, and we have a need for about 400 tons of uranium every year. What is this going to be like? I mean, if nuclear power is going to be the clean power that we seek in the future.
Well, first thing I should clarify, there's been so much talk of the Australian deal the last couple of days.
Sure.
Several people I've talked to, including the highest levels of the strategic community, don't seem to understand that this is not enriched uranium that's being sold to us.
Okay.
It is uranium from the ground, yellow cake, that's going to
That's
be given
right.
to it. So, therefore, any future reactors that we may build or buy, which are so-called light water reactors, which is what the majority of the world reactors are, including the ones that Westinghouse would sell or French would sell, those require enriched uranium. And this will not work there unless we
Okay.
enrich it, which is a whole different,
Right.
can
So
of
that
worms.
doesn't help us at all?
Not with that.
Okay.
They, in fact, the general understanding is that they will provide the fuel for their reactors
Okay.
when these people give us the reactor. But at the same time, the reactors that we do have now, the so-called CANDU reactors, they are heavy water reactors, and they can work on ordinary uranium. They're just about the only ones that can work on ordinary uranium. That's what we've been doing all these years. We've been using our 200-300 tons of
Okay.
uranium coming out of the ground to run our CANDU reactors, and we may build more of them. We're learning to build larger ones than before. So for them, this will definitely be useful.
Right. Dr. Datta, Mr. Shashank has already said that, it opens the doors for greater cooperation between Australia and India in the entire region in defense, security-related matters. Because of this, of the position that Australia took about India not signing the NPT, was this a problem in the past?
Yes, of course, it was a problem in the past, and I think it was a major hurdle in the past for which we could not sign a nuclear deal in the past. But I would agree with Shashankji that after the signing of the Indo-US nuclear deal, the whole Pandora box has opened up for
Right, but not
India.
for Australia and Japan.
Not for Australia and Japan. Australia was reluctant, but that reluctancy has gone now, and we were hoping and we were very optimistic that something will materialize in relation to Japan, but it couldn't take place.
It's still in the
reason.
negotiation.
It is still there in the pipeline, and hopefully in coming couple of months there would be something concrete there also. But when I look into this agreement, I look into this agreement not only on the basis of the clean, efficient nuclear energy which we would be getting, in future. But besides that, I look at it more through the foreign policy side and rather through the strategic side of it. There are huge implications when we look at it strategically.
Okay.
Australia has been a frequent partner in relation to the Malabar naval exercise with India and with United States of America. So we had been having a kind of an unfolding strategic equation with Australia. Australia is definitely a part of the Indian Ocean Rim countries. India is one of the pioneering member of that. East Asia Summit also, it's a full dialogue partner. And I have been advocating that the future of India lies ahead of Lucas now. It lies towards Pacific Ocean. That is where the gold mine is. And Australia is actually a stepping stone towards that. When we have to look into Micronesia, when we have to look into Polynesia, where there are untouched natural resources, which could be of very great strategic importance as well as of very great valuable economic importance for India, which is absolutely untouched so far. And Australia has got fantastic relationship with all those island countries, and this could be a gateway. This historic agreement between India and Australia could be a big, a very big thing, a kind of a solid pillar in relation to that gateway. And my understanding is we have just entered into the doorstep now, and there is a huge potential ahead.
So how would the world look then, Mr. Shashank, at the statement made by the Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Abbott, that India has, crossed every dotted every I and crossed every T, and scrupulously done so, fulfilling almost all the requirements or all the requirements which a non-signatory of the NPT would do.
Well, firstly, the Australians have said that all along they have complete trust in what India has done or is doing or will do in future. This is a very strong endorsement of the Government of India's policies in the past as well as for the future. Secondly, the Australian Prime Minister has endorsed Mr. Modi's policies so strongly that even when he was asked specifically that what about the record and some adverse comments in Australia when Mr. Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he said, no, that was all the head of the administration. So we cannot put everything is past, is way behind us. Thirdly, as soon as the Australian Prime Minister came to know that 2 ancient statues, antique statues had been stolen from India, taken to Australia, he immediately decided, no, they must be sent back to India. Now, this is a very important thing. So many of our antiques have been stolen and taken out of the country that it's a message for all those countries which are holding on to Indian antiques, and that they must, now if they want really good relationship and trust of the Indian people, then they must come up with on their own, not because the Indians are asking for some sword of Maharaja Ranjit Singh or some other part. No, it should be on its own. All the countries should come
forward.
It's a very
important gesture.
that there was a past history of exploitation, stealing assets, etc. But now that is all over. So I think that will be also very important. Australia has said very clearly that they are not going to lose their friendship with China for the friendship that they will make with India. This is a very important statement. Because there is a feeling in India sometimes that if we make friends with the United States or Australia, etc., we should be then emboldened to take on China. No, those countries are not hoping that you replace China
Obviously.
as the muscle power in this region. They only want that the whole of Asia should rise, and India and China should also rise in unison at that time.
Professor Rajaraman, how competitive is the nuclear trade industry? Because, I mean, if India is going to spend $85 billion over the next few years to try and build up capacity, and we are now getting deals from all sorts of countries across the world, are we going to get good deals is what I'm asking.
Well, to some extent, we got things a little rumpled when we passed the liability law. As a result of which, all the deals are at the moment held back. There's some kind of understanding is going on with the Russians. I think they'll probably come through before anybody else does. And the Americans will probably be the last because they are private companies that make.
Right.
So some of that movement has slowed down. When 2008 October, when the deal was signed, we all thought that the reactors would be sold within a year or something. Agreements would be signed.
Right.
It's now 6 years and nothing has been signed so far, other than general understanding. So that is one problem. And I should also mention that I think what I sense from what my colleagues say here, I also feel that the uranium is not the important issue here.
Okay.
As I see it,
Right.
we have got uranium from Kazakhstan, we've got it from Namibia.
I mean, there's enough to supply our needs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And sure, it helps, but it's more of a thorn on the side of the friendly relationship between these two countries, which is going on in many fields.
Okay.
I should mention that even NGOs have groupings within this Asia-Pacific region.
Right.
There is something called the Asia-Pacific Leadership Network. I have the honor to belong to that. Gareth Evans started it, Foreign Minister of Australia.
Right.
And India and Australia are all part of it. We're thinking of all kinds of things, networking, regulatory agencies, this, that, and the other. So in the middle of all that, if a country doesn't give you uranium, it's a thorn in the side.
Right.
I think the removal of that
Sure.
is a very important step.
But Dr. Datta, trade between India and Australia is well below potential as well. I mean, everyone tries to compare the two Asian giants. I mean, we see that, China gets a lot more trade from all these countries. I mean, if one has to try and, if you look at, these are democracies talking to each other and all these other affinities that are talked about and all the rhetoric, it doesn't live up, to the expectations.
No, of course not. It doesn't live up, and I would rather say that the potential is huge in relation to bilateral trade, not only in the field of nuclear commerce, for example, but also in relation to agricultural items, in relation to scientific exchange, and also in relation to many other areas like mining, then horticulture and all this. These are areas which are still untouched, and I think there is a huge potentiality to develop all those areas. The problem was I would rather say that in the past, when it came to the question of foreign policy, the mindset of Indian foreign policy makers was also of that type that we always look towards Europe, or towards United States of America, or towards Russia and all those. Like Australia was almost missing in that whole thing. It is fortunate. I mean, of late we are fortunate enough that we have realized our mistake, and we have realized that there is a huge potential which is just at the neighborhood, just next door, which is yet to be touched, and it needs to be touched. Second thing is when it comes to the question of China, yes, of course, Australia has got a very rosy relationship with China, especially when it comes to economic ties. But within that economic relationship also, there is definitely a kind of a fear psychosis. Not only of Australia, it's there. It's not only in the case of Australia, it's in the case of New Zealand, it's in the case of ASEAN nation also. This unfolding military expansionism of China does create a kind of a sense of fear, within all these countries, because these countries are all democracies. And they do feel that, yes, some way the strategic equation in Asia-Pacific region is getting imbalanced. And for that to, get neutralized, for that to neutralize, India plays in a very important factor there. And therefore, it becomes very vital for Australia also to cozy her relationship with India. And I would say that the nuclear civilian deal was a kind of a thorn which was not you know, which was existing between the bilateral improvement of the bilateral relationship.
Okay.
Now that this deal has been successfully, you know, like signed and it's being implemented, I think the range of relationship has widened up a lot between
fair
these two
enough.
countries.
So the range is going to increase a great deal. Also, Australia will be having the G20 meeting later in the year. But you know, I mean, if India is going to play this countervailing force or the balancing force in the region, obviously, I mean, from looking at it from our point of view, we have a lot to, I mean, negotiate for. India is on a strong wicket, would you say?
Well,
I
we
mean,
have
in
to
terms of
play-
what we need to get.
No, we have to play our cards carefully.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Australia has a $150 billion bilateral trade with China.
Yes, that's
So if we are thinking that we will shut off all the trade with China and somehow isolate China and set up our own $150 billion trade with Australia,
we're about
I
$100
don't think it will
billion
not be
behind
possible.
right now.
It will not be possible. So,
Right.
so I think we have to be realistic. We should know that China has become the manufacturing center for the whole world, and it has been helped not only by United States but also by many countries in Asia, like Japan, Taiwan, Korea. 20,000 Japanese companies have invested in China.
Okay.
Only 1,000 have come to India, and now they are saying a few hundred more may come, which means it's a difficult task to go from 1,000 to 20,000. So
Right.
therefore, we have to build ties with China. There's no doubt at all about it.
Sure.
On the other hand, we don't have to succumb to their pressures,
Yeah.
and we have to tell them that whatever their commitments are to the world or to Asia, they must abide by them.
Okay.
And we have told them in the past also there were forces of expansionism
Yes.
which always ruined the chances of world peace or peace in Asia. Now that there is another chance of the center of gravity of the world moving towards Asia, we should not spoil it. And for that reason, the relationship of Australia, India, Japan is very important to keep China, all of us, on the path of growth, but
Okay.
also peace and stability in the
Right.
region.
But Professor Rajaraman, coming back to the nuclear issue, I mean, if we're having trouble with, with how safe nuclear technology is and these nuclear reactors, and we've seen the problems at Kudankulam, etc. I mean, what's the potential really? I mean, when in the area when India is such a heavily populated country, do we have the places where we can have reactors? I mean, all those issues, we're just talking now of setting up, 30 reactors, 63,000 megawatts by 2032. It's not as easy as all that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not easy. First of all, the 63,000 megawatts is not going to happen. I mean, I think that's just, I'll be happy if it's 20,000, realistically speaking.
We're
Like-
supposed to be 15,000 by 2020.
Yeah, but it's not going to be 15,000.
Okay.
We have 6,000 right now. And remaining 9,000, the remaining 9 years, how? None of the other reactors have even started laying a foundation stone. So I think we have ambition. I think it's good that we are expanding. We'll expand as fast as we can. But some of these numbers that are being thrown about are a little too optimistic. But coming back to the issue of safety, there I think that to some extent the safety issue concerns have been exaggerated, grossly exaggerated. If you look at the actual number of casualties and so on and so forth, it's a very complicated exercise to find out exactly how dangerous reactors are.
Okay,
But
sure.
it's not such a serious problem.
Right.
And
And finally, we run short of time, but Dr. Datta, given the concerns, for nuclear trade with India because of the issues that of safety, I mean, if things don't go as well as these countries hope, in terms of the deals that they sign, is that a big setback for the relationship?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It would be a kind of a setback as such. More important is the gesture. And if the gesture itself is positive, there could be hurdles. Every relationship does have hurdles, but that doesn't mean that you divorce as such.
Okay.
It all depends on how pragmatic and how practical you are. And it is important that we should have a pragmatic, cohesive, practical relationship with Australia, which is fruitful for Australia also, it's fruitful for India also, and for the stability of Asia Pacific, it is important that China also should be taken into account. And
Sure.
International relationship of today is such that you cannot be at loggerheads with each other. If you want to develop yourself, if you want to make a presence of yourself felt, you have to coexist.
So these are exciting times for Asia then. We leave it there. Thank you very much,
Thank you so
gentlemen,
much.
for